Hey everybody, it's Brett and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about March, and there are so many books coming out. Like, we're not even ready. March and April are so chock full. It's like the publishing houses just said, we're going to dump as much as we can because we're not making books anymore after these 2 months. I mean, seriously, there is so much. So I'm going to talk about up to 10 books today that are coming out that I think look particularly interesting. Some of these I've just read this month, so I'll be recapping them for you in my February wrap up. But, and what I've read so far, I've liked everything. So really good stuff coming out, really good things coming. So first of all, what I'm reading at the moment, I just started Devil is Fine by John Vircher, which is on the Aspen's long list. And that short list is coming up. And I really want to get through most of this long list before. And I just don't know that I'm going to be able to do it. But this is really good, really enjoying this. It's about a biracial man who finds out he's inherited a home from his grandfather, and what happens when he goes there to check it out. Really good, really interesting. I think I talked about wanting to read this for my February TBR, and one of the things I mentioned was, this is such an interesting cover to me, and one of you pointed out that it will completely make sense, and I will tell you, yes, it actually does. So I've gotten to the jellyfish, it completely makes sense, but I'm really, really enjoying this. So that is the main thing that I'm reading at the moment. I'm also trying to get through stuff for the podcast. And I have some great guests coming on the podcast in March, so be looking for those. I'm going to try to do these in order of when they're coming out. One thing, the first one is by Emily St. James. It's called Woodworking. This is a debut novel. It's an unforgettable and heartwarming book club debut following a trans high school teacher from a small town in South Dakota who befriends the only other trans woman she knows, one of her students. It's as detransition baby meets Fleischman is in trouble, and this remarkable debut from an incisive contemporary voice, a story about the awkwardness of growing up and the greatest love story of all, that between us and our friends. Woodworking is a tonic for the moment and a celebration of womanhood in all its multifaceted joy. I just need to say this, like I with everything that's happening in the US right now, and especially the way that 1.3% of the population is being targeted, and by that I mean trans people, to such an extreme that these has nothing to do with anyone's day-to-day life. It is not impacting everyone's day-to-day life. For me, I feel like it's very important to not only celebrate, but really give voice and magnify these writers, to magnify trans writers, because I just feel like it's important. The 1% that we really need to be concerned about is at the top, and it's the billionaires. It is not a group of people who just want to be themselves in their most authentic way possible. I will now get off my soapbox, but I say that because there are 2 books coming out this month, both by trans authors, and I'm interested in both of them, and I want them both to be successful. There you go. Okay, so that's first. Moving on, Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. I talked about this last month and how much I loved it. I'm letting you all know now. Charlotte will be my guest next week on the podcast. I really love this book, probably one of my favorites that I've read this year so far. It just had so many great elements to it. It was completely compelling. It was moving. The message of the book is so fantastic. So this comes out March 4th as well. So check it out. And I think you're going to be seeing this a lot of places. I really wouldn't be surprised if this is a book club pick for one of the book clubs, the celebrity book clubs. Then March 11th, another one of my favorite books of the year, which I hadn't even talked about. I don't think I talked about it last month, but I read it. I wanted to have her on the show, but she's completely booked up, so I couldn't get her. And she is Karen Russell, and the book is The Antidote. It's been 6 years since we've seen a book from Karen Russell. She was the author of Vampires in the Lemon Grove and Swamplandia. I didn't read Vampires in the Lemon Grove, but I have to tell you, when I finished this, I immediately bought it. And I remember reading Swamplandia years ago, and it didn't strike me one way or the other at the time. I remember thinking it was strange. I remember alligators. This, I thought, was truly an amazing book. It is set during the Dust Bowl in Nebraska. It is about a woman. The Antidote is this witch who is a woman who can listen to whatever you want to tell her, and that memory is erased from your mind. She's just one of the focal points of the story. It is also of a young girl who was being raised by a single mother who gets murdered, so she is taken in by her uncle. So they are another two parts of the story. And then there is a photographer who comes into this town in Nebraska. She is Black, and she is taking pictures for the federal government to document what is going on. But her camera has kind of a life of its own. So there is a whole magical realism element to this book that really completely worked for me. It is a story about memory, and both collective and individual, and what we choose to forget and what we are sometimes forced to remember. I thought it was an incredible book, and her writing is absolutely exquisite. I mean, some of her phrases, I found myself going crazy and underlining stuff. So I can't speak more highly about this book. I loved it. I will be shocked if it's not on my top 10 for the year. Also out March 11th is Stag Dance by Tori Peters. This was my other title with a trans author. Tori Peters, of course, of Detransition Baby. I have not read this yet, but this is a series of short stories, one longer one, and then I think it's one longer one, and then it's 4 total, one longer one, and then 3 others. So totally interested in this, just haven't had a chance to read it yet. But again, this comes out March 11th as well. Also, March 11th, I'm telling you, guys, The Jackal's Mistress by Chris Bajalian. I came kind of late to the Chris Bajalian thing. The first thing I read from Chris was The Lioness, which was only 2 books ago. So I feel like I've got to go back. I mean, the guy is so crazy prolific, and he's like Stephen King, Joyce Carol Oates, these people that can churn something out every year, and every single book is so different. This is about a woman whose husband has gone to war, so she is stayed behind, and she has 2 freed slaves that are a husband and wife that live with her and her niece, and they make grain for the Confederate Army. Well, one day a rebel gets caught, and she begins, and the group of them begin to care for him and bring him back to health, and what happens. It's really well done. I was happy. It surprised me at the end, because I did have a moment when I thought, I know exactly where this is going, and it wasn't where I thought it was going. So I really appreciated that. But again, he's a great storyteller, also the nicest guy in the world, and one of these writers who advocate so much for other writers, and I think that is so amazing. But if you just want a really good story that's going to suck you in with a group of good characters, I would say definitely check this out, and thank you to Doubleday for this. All right, moving on to March 18th. One of my favorite books last year was The Bad Muslim Discount by Syed Masood. And so when I saw that he was coming out with a new book, I was really, really excited about it. What it is with Syed is, I think he is such a great writer who takes stories and mixes kind of comedy and tragedy so well. So you find yourself laughing one moment, and then something happens that is so jarring, it lands that much harder. And it is the same with his new book, The Last Man in Paradise. I mean, you could see clearly I was enjoying it. And thank you to Eighth Note Press for this. This is a really great story, again, about a young man whose father sends him to a religious academy in England, which he leaves and becomes an actor without letting his parents know. Well, he gets a call at the beginning of the book from his father saying his grandfather is dying and they want him, his grandfather wants to see him. The family lives in Redding, California. So he comes from England and he has to pretend that he's gone through this religious education and is now imam. So it's what ensues. There's a whole subplot here of the girl that he left behind, who he got in trouble with, and which is what ended him up in the religious school to begin with, who he's going to see again. It's really, 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 really wonderful. Just a great book. It's funny. It's moving. I thought it was just fantastic. Terrific characters. So again, that is March 18th. Also, March 18th, Kristen Arnett's Stop Me If You've Heard This one. This is a really fun book. And thank you to Riverhead for this. This is about a woman, 28 years old, living in Orlando, Florida, who is a clown. And her life. And she works at a pet store. She is obsessed with this older woman who is also a clown performer who is kind of like known within the circuit. And her very strained relationship with her mother. It's really funny. It's really a great character story. And I really, really, really liked this one as well. So that is out on the 18th. So check it out. Also on the 18th is one of the International Booker long list titles, which just came out this week. And I'm not even going to do an episode about the long list titles because I don't feel qualified. I am getting FOMO and we'll jump in and read some of them, including this one. But if you really want that, I would go to Ben Reads Good because I know he has a wonderful reaction to it today. And he is someone who's all over it. Probably Savage Reads does as well. But I plan to read some of them, but I don't feel versed enough in all of these writers to give you an analysis of it. But thank you to Hogarth for this, which I will be reading. And I will say this is like one of, the first of the group that I will read. It just is a bombshell bestseller in Japan, a provocative, defiant debut novel about a young woman in a care home seeking autonomy and the full possibilities of her life. It looks like a one-sit read. I'm really excited to get into this, but this comes out here in the States again on the 18th. Then, okay, so this book sounds so interesting to me. It's called Osinners by Nicole Cuffey. And I'll tell you why. I'm so into cults. And it says a young journalist reeling from loss investigates a mysterious cult in the California redwoods, only to be drawn by its charismatic leader in this addictive novel that asks why people give up control and what it takes ultimately to find one's place in the world. Okay, this sounds so good to me. Also, I think this is such a fantastic cover. I think it's really cool and telling and gives you just enough based on what the story is that, I'm getting Wolf in the Woods vibes, all of that. So I'm really excited about this one. Also on the 18th, can you believe it, you guys? Hot Air by Marcy Dermansky. This is described as a joyfully unhinged story of money, marriage, sex, and revenge unspools when a billionaire crashes his hot air balloon into the middle of a pandemic. And a joyfully unhinged story of money, marriage, sex, and revenge unspools when a billionaire crashes his hot air balloon into the middle of a post-pandemic first date. This is a little slip of a novel. It's like 200 pages. Again, this could be a weekend read. This could be a one-sit read. But I know some people who've read it and said it's really fun. So I'm looking forward to this as well. Then on March 25th, please, so zeitgeist, Gregory Maguire's Elfie, which is the childhood story of Elphaba, because why not? So that comes out March 25th. Also out March 25th is Paul Rudnick's What is Wrong with You, about a group of individuals, all kind of connected, who are going to the wedding of the year. I didn't even mention a new Suzanne Collins book this month, a new Hunger Games book, because it doesn't need me mentioning, because I've now mentioned it. And so hopefully there's something in this list that intrigues you. Again, some of these that I have already read, I will talk about more in depth when I do my February wrap up, but a packed March. It's going to be a packed April as well. So I'll do another one of these at April to let you know what I think is interesting. But check some of these books out. Let me know if any of them are intriguing to you or what you might have already read. I hope you're all having a great week, and thanks for being here, and I will see you all soon.